William G. Boykin is a foreign policy advisor for Ted Cruz, and he's a former general. So this was a pretty important guy. And recently he hit the talk radio circuit to get out the vote for his candidate, Ted. And he said some very questionable things, to say the least.
General Boykin, if nothing is done, what's going to happen?
Well, most people think in terms of terrorism. I think that that's the top end. That's sort of the tip of the iceberg. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see more influence in our government. You're going to see more influence in our city councils. You're going to see more influence in our Congress. You're going to see more people that are getting into influential positions that are going to begin or continue changing our culture in general and forcing us to essentially modify our own behavior in what I think is a dangerous way. They're going to force us to accept certain things that are just not acceptable, just as the Europeans have. Where the Europeans have allowed enclaves to be established, and they've allowed imams to adjudicate legal issues under Sharia. We're going to see that in America. You already see the beginnings of that. It is reported that you have a Sharia court in Texas, for example, and in Michigan. And you're going to see more of that if people don't wake up and take a stand against this and recognize the nature of the threat. It's a very serious threat.
He just said Sharia courts are in Texas and Michigan. This guy is Ted Cruz's foreign policy advisor, and he believes Sharia courts are in Michigan and Texas. Okay, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. And for those of you who don't know about General Boykin's record here, well, he is a born-again fundamentalist Christian, and he has a very scary quote that highlights his philosophy. Talking about our enemies in Iraq, he said, quote, "I know that my God was bigger than his. I know that my God was a real God, and his was an idol." He's also spoken about how God made it so that he initially got into the military. I think it was originally the Air Force. He's like, oh, no, totally. An angel spoke to me, and then God spoke to me and said, okay, this is your path in life. Your God is bigger and better than the God of the other. Ugh, gross. So you need to wage effectively a holy war on these people. A jihad of sorts on these people. And that's the irony of this guy's existence. As he whines and moans and bitches and yelps about non-existent Sharia courts in the United States of America, where Muslims are less than 1% of the population, and according to the polls, they're actually rather liberal. For example, they overwhelmingly voted Bernie Sanders in Dearborn, Michigan in the recent election. As he fearmongers about them, he's trying to implement his own Sharia, his Christian Sharia, and he's supporting a candidate who proudly states, I want to carpet bomb Syria into oblivion. I want to see if we can make the sand glow from carpet bombing. You know what carpet bombing does? The whole point of it is to get civilian casualties. So Ted Cruz has said, let's carpet bomb Raqqa. Well, the overwhelming majority of people in Raqqa are civilians, and they're oppressed by ISIS. ISIS came in and said, now we're your government, and now we're going to force ourselves onto you, and we're going to control you. Ted's like, I don't care. Just go carpet bomb everything there. Guilty enough! Guilty enough! And this guy Boykin's like, oh, that's awesome. I agree with that strategy. So let's be indiscriminate in our bombing and killing of them and talk about how evil they are and about how they've infiltrated the country and they've set up Sharia courts here. As, again, ironically, he wants to run a religious government. He wants to wage a jihad of sorts of his own, a holy war. And he's guilty of everything he's accusing American Muslims of being guilty of. That's the hypocrisy of the far right and fundamentalist Christians right there in a nutshell.